as the dollar is, being cut, its tie is being cut from gold, it's starting to inflate more exponentially, and all other currencies are kind of floating up. Think of like a helium balloon. As soon as you cut the end that's weighed down, the balloon is just floating. It's floating, it's floating, it's floating. You can't get it unless you're, inside and there's a roof. The thing is with the monetary system, there is no roof. There is no cap to how much money can be created anymore. Now what we see as quote unquote money doesn't even meet the definition, the most important definition of money, which is that it needs to be a store of value.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow, because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming on this year. Without further ado, let's get right into this one for Donny. For anyone who hasn't had the opportunity yet to get to know you, to get to meet you yet, brother, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
Absolutely. My name is Donovan Taylor, also known as Donny Dropout. I'm a serial entrepreneur, investor, keynote speaker, and my main focus is just to help people elevate in the three most important pillars of life, which are health, wealth, and happiness. And so super excited to be here, John. And for the podcast, let's get it.
So I always like to start things off by telling us, taking us back in time to little Donny. Like, take us back in the time machine. What was little Donny like when he was first growing up?
Man, yeah, it's always so cool. It's like nostalgic when you look back on where you've come from and life thus far. So I'm 24 years old, and little Donny, I'm gonna be honest, was just this gamer, this guy that loves sports. Growing up, I played hockey for 7 years. I'm from Canada as well, so hockey's like pretty much the main sport that we play over here. And aside from school and sports, it was just video games. That's what I was really, really keen on growing up. I played a lot of Call of Duty, a lot of Rocket League, for those of you that, maybe are gamers on here. But that was pretty much the majority of my childhood. And into high school, I was still just nerding out. Like after school, I would go to work for a little bit. I had a part-time job. Then right after that, it's like 8 hours of just video games, just grinding it out. So not too exciting, not too exciting, my childhood and kind of growing up in that sense. But I will say that, that, I guess, just commitment to video games and that love for something like video games, I was able to then transform into something that's more meaningful, which is, of course, entrepreneurship and everything that I've got going on now. So it's...
Let me ask you, man, what was the first Call of Duty you picked up?
First one I ever played was Black Ops 2. Still to date, like the best Call of Duty. I put Call of Duty Black Ops 2 against just about any other COD, and it would like beat it any day of the week, except for MW2. I know MW2 is a pretty big one.
MW2, I feel like it was just the time period more so the game than itself. I feel like it's the time has something more to do with it. I feel like as a game, like Black Ops 2 definitely was better. I just think Modern Warfare 2, like that time period was better for gaming as a whole. So I think overall, like I got in Modern Warfare 3. That was like my 5th grade year. I got an Xbox 360, and we didn't have a car growing up. So I still remember me and my mom, we took the bus to Target, or was it the Target or GameStop? I forget which one it was. And I think it was the mall. I think we went to the mall and we went to GameStop, and we had to pretty much walk with the box, which was pretty heavy, that Xbox 360 box. It was pretty heavy, and had to pretty much take the bus back home and then walk back from the bus stop all the way back home. And I was carrying that drain. I was over here, a little 5th grader, carrying this big old heavy box that was like half my size.
That's hilarious.
I still got memories, bro, from back in 5th grade. I remember I sucked. Like, I was really bad starting off, man. I had like a 0.4 KD, but I learned very, very quickly to grip my way through, obstacles. I was completely work. It was a school night one night, and I remember I was just like bawling my eyes out, crying, because I would try to get in Modern Warfare 3. For anyone that's not a gamer, they have different types of kill streaks. So you have the kill streaks where you go on a spree without dying, and then they have the assist kill streaks where you get them just for the amount of kills that you get. So you didn't have to go on a spree without dying. If you just had 10 kills, regardless of whether you died 10 times or 100 times, like, you would still get the streak. And so I was on the assist one. I forget what the exact word was called. And I remember at 18 kills, you got like that. I think it's like some type of it was like 5 care packages would come down. And I was staying up on a school night till like 1 a.m, just bawling my eyes out because I sucked so bad. And I eventually got it. And then as soon as I got it, I think I played one more game and then went right to bed, and it was a school night the next night. But like, man, there was plenty of nights like that where I would just grip my way through. And then Black Ops 2 is when I eventually started getting really good. And that's when I think I could have went comp. Like, I think we
Mm.
could have played, like, we would play like Master League. What's it called? Like what's it called? The Elite Master thing, the 4-on-4s where they were ranked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
Um,
like trying to remember what it was called in Black Ops 2. I think it was just league play. I think it was
League
league
play, I
play.
think it was, yeah,
Yeah.
league play. I swear we could have went ranked. I think we got platinum one time, but yeah, we were official. Especially once I started getting good, bro. I still remember my first nuclear I ever got, which is like a 30 kill streak without dying. I
Sheesh.
remember it vividly, bro. Like video games, like that day. It was a Sunday or Saturday morning. We were on this map called Express. It was a train map, and I
Wow, you
had,
got it on Express too.
yeah,
That's fire.
I
That's
got on
fire.
Express. We were playing, if I'm not mistaken, Domination. I was playing solo and had an MSMC with suppressor. I think quick draw, and I forget what else I had.
That's a demon gun.
And I forget what else wasn't. But I was going crazy, bro. I remember my boy. He was in the Xbox party because everyone else was asleep. And I got that kill streak, and it was just like, bro, the way I started yelling on the mic, bro, you would have thought someone got, broke into my house, man. Gaming, like, really made a big, and I actually haven't really ever talked about the podcast. So you mind if we take a quick tangent? Like, what was gaming like to you? Because like for me, like that was a real big part of my life growing up.
Hmm.
From like
Hmm.
fifth grade year to like maybe I'd say senior year of high school, man, I was on the game all the time.
Yeah, no, me too, man. I mean, that's where it all began. Even before like Call of Duty, when I consider myself a gamer, and when I think about the time that I was spending on games, that's the period of my life, like kind of middle school to high school, and playing Call of Duty. That's kind of what I think of. But even before that, Pokemon was like huge for me. Like I used
Yeah,
to play Pokemon Emerald. That was like the game that I was just like really dialed in with. And it's so cool because with video games, it's like you were mentioning, like it develops that grit. It's like you're playing Mario, you got to get to the next level, you got to survive the entirety of that level to get to the next one, and then it's like you might play a level 15, 20 times, maybe more than that before you even beat it, before you can go on to the next level. And it's just like you're just so dedicated to making it happen. And so Pokemon was like that for me because it was one, I'm like a maybe 10-year-old kid, not really knowing how to do anything on
yeah.
Pokemon, like total noob. I don't know what to do to get to the next gym, let alone beat the Elite Four. Like it's just such a huge like trial and error city for me playing Pokemon, man. I can definitely relate to you on that with the
Yeah,
trial and error.
let me ask you. So you said you were gaming a ton. You had a job in high school, but like you weren't very entrepreneurially minded in the traditional sense, meaning you didn't have the
Yeah.
the lemonade stand or the paper route or the business selling sneakers or whatever. But for me, what I found out is I also wasn't like that. And then I realized when I did get into entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
a lot of those traits that I learned from playing football, from playing video games, were very easily like transferred over
Yeah.
into the business world. So like when you made, what was the thing that made you become a little bit more entrepreneurial and start seeing the entrepreneurial light as a path that you wanted to head down?
Hmm.
And when you did, the second question to follow up after that is like, how did the skills that you got along your earlier life help transfer over?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's actually funny. So I did have a paper route.
Really?
I did have a paper route. Yeah, I'm remembering now. It's not something that I was really thinking about when we were taking a trip down memory lane, but it's come to the surface now. So I had a paper route, two different ones, because
Really? Okay.
I had a paper route in one area of my city where I'm from, and then we ended up moving to like a different place about 5-10 minutes away. So I just took that paper route, gave it to somebody else, and then took over a new one in the new area where I was going to be living at. So I guess, yeah, that was like probably like 13, 14 years old. So that's when I got a taste for being able to create income for myself, and it wasn't really, it's not the same as like a traditional job where, you're having to go clock in, clock out kind of thing. It's basically the papers are delivered to your crib, and then you take them and you deliver them. No one says anything if you're doing it later than you should or anything like that. So it was unique in that sense. But I would say what really got me into the entrepreneurial spirit was, I remember this so vividly. So I'm in the computer lab. This is, I believe, grade 12. And I'm having this conversation with one of my really close friends at the time. We're talking about investing. Like he's just telling me about how his family, that, he's from a well-off family. They've got investments and they're very transparent about where their funds go to. Imagine like you have wealthy parents and the wealthy parents are wanting to pour into their kids everything that they know at a much younger age, right? That's kind of like what they were doing with him. So he's telling me about the stock market and investing and making money when the market's, going up and stuff like that. I remember being so fascinated by the idea of doing that. And he was telling me like, yeah, like there are people that do this full time, like they're making a full time income just through investments. And I was like, whoa, like that's such a crazy and cool opportunity, a cool thing. And so, it's so interesting too, because that same individual later that year actually ended up taking his own life.
Wow.
And if it weren't for that conversation with him and being open to the idea of making money in an unconventional way through investments, I don't think I would have actually started to be an investor a year later when the opportunity presented itself. And then that's when it really started to become more of a reality for me, is just this entrepreneurial unconventional route of making money online. And to answer the second part of your question, the trials and tribulations with video games and that persistence and what it really takes to become successful at any sort of a game was something that was certainly a transferable skill for me with trading, because trading and investing, those are things where you're going to be, odds are you're just going to be falling on your face like a bunch of times before you really understand, what's good and what you're doing. And so that same persistence I was able to take from video games growing up and apply that to the trading and investing space, and ultimately persist for the past, 6 going on, I guess 2018. Yeah, going on 6 years.
Yeah, that's amazing,
So
man. So
yeah.
let me ask you, because I had a very similar thing where my boy Marcus, he's actually the guy. This is supposed to be a co-host show where I was supposed to co-host with Marcus,
Mm,
and he told me back in like 2019, 2020, before the pandemic started, about Robinhood, and he had me sign up and get a free account. I got like a free stock, and it started going downhill. So instead of sell, I sold. I mean, I never put any money in, so I made a stock was like maybe like $2 or something like that. But it started
mm,
going down, and then I just sold it, and then I kept like the $1 and something cents or something like that, and then closed the app and never opened it ever again. And that was my history with like trading. And I like to talk. It was kind of like John the Baptist in my life, where
mm,
he came too soon. Like he came to pave the way, right?
mm,
He ain't come to save me. And so
mm,
like, but he planted that seed without him realizing it, and to another opportunity. I didn't understand it at all. Took me about a year after that for me to even open my mind to the entrepreneurial road. Similar to you, it
mm,
there was a big time delay, and for me, I didn't think personally I was ready to even start understanding that stuff at the time. Like my
mm.
mindset wasn't where it needed to actually even embrace that as an opportunity. So like, what happened in that time gap between him telling you about stocks and then you actually running with the opportunity? Like, what happened in between then that allowed you to take action that second time around when the opportunity presented itself?
Yeah, great question. I think so. For me at that time, this was around the time when I started to dive into personal development. So this would have been 2017, probably. I graduated in 2017 from 12th grade here in Canada, and then I took what we call a victory lap. So you can choose to do it for a full year. It's basically like a 13th grade. You can do it for like half the year or a full year. So I ended up taking it for just half the year, 6 months. I was like, man, I just don't want to go to university yet. I was like, I'm not trying to, go out of pocket for this quite yet. So I ended up taking an online class to boost my average, and then a power fit class. So those are the only two classes that I took. The only one I had to show up for was this like gym, like power fit, kind of like weightlifting class.
Yeah.
And then I would just go work out, and then I would go to my job, and I was working at a drugstore. I remember this. This is so funny. This is like as I was starting to transition into the world of investing during my 5th year, and so that was like my routine. I would like wake up, I would go to the gym at my school, go home. If I didn't have work, I would go home, play video games, or I would go to work and just grind it out there. And so the yeah, like that timeline, I started to go down this personal development route. So I started with like meditation. I just had so much time. I was like, man, like, maybe I should do something a little bit more productive than just like grinding out code. So meditation was something I started to learn about and practice, and reading and things of that nature. And then when the opportunity represented itself, so that was like he planted the seed for me in that computer lab. Probably, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 months before he took his life. And a year later, as I was just pouring into myself and doing personal development, the opportunity of crypto presented itself. So April 2018 is when I first started to actually invest. And that was right after the 2016, 2017 bull market in crypto. So that's when everything was like going crazy. Everybody and their moms was talking about crypto and Bitcoin. This was like the first time on a social media scale too. It was really blowing up. So I had a bunch of different people I was seeing on my Instagram feed that were just like seeing this crazy, like almost seemingly overnight success with crypto. I was like, man, like I remember that conversation in the computer lab where we were talking about this, and people are really out here doing it. Like my age, people buying Lambos and stuff. Like I can do this too. So I think the difference was that conversation that we had was him planting the seed of the opportunity. And then when it re-presented itself to me a little over a year later, and I had already been kind of going through a little bit of this personal development side of things and getting exposure to that space of personal development, which a lot of people that are doing personal development are entrepreneurs. So it was like, hey, this is maybe my opportunity to take action on it. And it just so happened I was 18 at the time, so I could open an account like Robinhood. I think the first account that I opened, because it was crypto specifically, it was on an exchange that doesn't even exist anymore. It was called Quadriga. And that exchange actually got like rug pulled completely. Like there's like a conspiracy around like the CEO or the owner of that exchange like faking his death and shit. It's actually pretty crazy. But yeah,
That
it's
is
wild.
nuts, bro.
Yeah.
That is nuts. So let me ask you, right? So then you got into trading a little bit. So when did the name Donny Dropout come into the picture? How did that come about? Why do people call you Donny Dropout? Why did that become like your personal brand? And let me ask you a follow-up question to that, right? Why were you okay making that your personal brand? Because a lot of
Mm.
people on the traditional track are like entirely against anything that's not graduating from a 4-year university and getting a corporate job.
I love that question. I get that one sometimes, and it's like I love answering that question because it's just so funny how it all like transpired. So 2018 is when I started investing and trading. That same year, so that was April 2018.
Yeah.
September 2018 is when I officially enrolled in post-secondary school. So I took like basically from the beginning of 2018 till like May, June as like a victory lap where I was just kind of messing around and had a bunch of time on my hands with school, saved up some money. And then I took post-secondary school. So I applied to a bunch of different universities. I went to the University of Waterloo here in Ontario, Canada. And I was in a program called Recreation and Leisure Studies, which is basically a prerequisite program for teachers college. So that's what I wanted to do, was like teaching at the time. I still love teaching. It's still something that's a part of my regime. It's just a little bit different. It's not off the
Yeah.
curriculum. So anyways, I was doing that. And very, very early into my experience trading, I was like, man, like, I know this is what I want to do. I know this is something that I really want to take in and run with. And so despite, being in school and also working jobs, with my city, I was doing a lot of like before and after school programs. I was doing some support positions where I was like supporting kids and youth with special needs, like autism, Down syndrome, stuff like that. And it was really fulfilling work. I loved what I was doing, but I still had like in the back of my mind, like making this work, like investing, trading. And at the time I had like a little group of people. I think it was on like Discord or Telegram. We were, working together, and I was just kind of helping people out in the space that were new, just like I was earlier that year. And so going into my second year of university, so this was like the first term was like September to April, and then you got like that 4 months until September comes around again for second year. So that 4 month period, things really started to like
Mhm.
shift for me with trading and investing, and not monetarily, because monetarily I still wasn't in a position to do it full time, but it was like the skill set was there, the connections were there, the network was there where I could really make something with this. And so I remember so vividly for my summer job, which was basically full day camp and supporting kids with special needs in that camp setting. I remember us doing the training leading up to it, which was in May. And during one of the training sessions, I'm like thinking, like what could I make for my Instagram handle that would just be like super dope? And so I'm thinking about all these different ideas, like, like I'm in school right now. Like part of me wants to just drop out and just do this thing, like just run
Yeah.
with it. So that ended up ultimately being what I did. I was like, okay, Donny Dropout, super sweet. A lot of people call me Donny instead of my full name, Donovan. So Donny Dropout, I think has a nice ring to it. I got like a couple second opinions from me. People are like, man, that's kind of fire. I like that. So I just did it. I changed my name to Donny Dropout immediately when I dropped out, which was November of 2019. And yeah, from there, I mean, it's been history in the making from there on, with the name and kind of, I guess, the brand. And to answer the second half of that question, which is, why something like that can be so untraditional or unconventional when it comes to people in this day and age. I think the reality is, like, a lot of people are starting to realize that school isn't a necessity anymore, especially when I look at the curriculum. I'd love your input on this as well, because I know that we're probably on the same wavelength with this, John. Is like the curriculum and school as we know it is like one of the only things that hasn't evolved in like the past 100 years in the same way that everything else has. Like the way that
Yeah.
we communicate has changed so drastically. We have like social medias now. We have, I mean, even just cell phones that are not just cell phones but smartphones. It's like so crazy. Like everything's been accelerating so quickly. We got AI now, as you know, and like AI is not replacing people's jobs, but people using AI are, right? As you know, and as
Mhm.
that's one of the things that you always talk about. So it's like school hasn't caught up with everything else in terms of, yeah, like evolution and just humans changing, and us as beings changing and evolving over time, and the technology that we're using is changing so quickly. So it's like school is just so outdated. So I think a lot of people are starting to open up more to the quote unconventional routes like entrepreneurship and so on and so forth. Really, the route that we're on, and we're kind of leading that path for people that are our age. So
Yeah, 100%, man. It's one of those things where, and I think it might have been you that posted this, but I'm not sure. But it said since like 2013, Instagram has updated hundreds of times, right, and changed hundreds of times. But school, since the dawn of time, hasn't pretty much changed. And how the education system, I guess back in the ancient days, were to actually make people successful, right,
mhm.
and they watered it down and changed it so that people can become more of cogs in the overall larger system.
Yep.
And since from the way I see it is that school has updated, like it's not a chalkboard anymore, it's a Promethean board, so it's
Right.
updated, but it hasn't fundamentally evolved,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's just the tools that we're using are a little bit different. But in terms of the overall structure of everything and the way it's taught and presented, it's not it hasn't really been touched too much. It hasn't been
Hmm.
touched at all, if anything, right? Since it's modern day schooling, since it's been around, has not been evolved or really changed at all. And it's something that's really doing a disservice to a lot of people. And as AI becomes a lot more all knowing and a lot more multifaceted,
Hmm.
there's people out there that have the creative capacity to create some type of AI tool that is going to completely disrupt all of the schooling system, because once an AI tool can just be trained on the curriculum and then from there customly cater and personalize all of the teaching and lessons to whichever person and then have it translated in English, Spanish, whatever language you wanted to, and then on top of that have it create video lessons to go alongside and freaking create the slides to go alongside it and the images, right? And then have all that just be on one AI tool and not seven different ones. Like
It's
It's going to
crazy.
be extremely nuts, because then at that point, then what really is the argument? Because ChatGPT right now, at the time we're recording this, is $20 a month. It could already generate images, right? It can already pretty much do advanced coding. It can have PDFs and Excel sheets and all these different types of files, imported it and transcribed and analyzed, right? You can watch videos and get trained on that. Like, and that's just one tool. And that's already trained on billions and billions of data points. It's like, it's insane already. It's like, where it's heading is something that I'm trying to make sure people stay in the loop on, because it's honestly something that's going to catch a lot of people that don't get with the times. Like, they're going to take a lot of people out. And it just makes you realize really how many people are still sleeping, right? How many people haven't woken up to the ways of the world. And so I want to
Facts.
kind of ask you to start pivoting a little bit, man, on a topic of money, because I know you know a lot about it, but I feel like most people don't really understand what money actually is and the role that it's supposed to serve in our societies and in our lives. So it's like, I want to hear your like thoughts, because we had a great conversation on this when we met back in over in New York City. Like,
Hmm.
what's your thoughts on money, man, and what it actually is and what it the role it's supposed to serve?
Yeah. So money is a very deep topic. And I think from a surface level, people's understanding of what money is and what it isn't is very unclear. Like a lot of people look at money as something of value, something that is used as a medium of exchange, which it is. You know, U.S. dollars is the global kind of leading currency right now, and that's changing over time. But the thing that's so interesting that I always like to put into perspective, and I've done this in numerous keynotes, Zoom webinars, and things of that nature, because I love speaking on this point and being in the world of finance and investing. It's relevant in a lot of cases. Having this kind of foundational understanding of money is necessary. So my favorite analogy to kind of share with people of what money used to be is, back in the day, it used to be something of true intrinsic value backed by golds, and it used to work very similarly to a coat check. So it's like, think of the last time that you went to a bar. I'm out here in Canada. The bars that we go to in the winter, it's cold. You're wearing a jacket,
Yeah.
and so you don't want to wear your jacket when you're in the bar or in the club. So you want to use the coat check. So you give your coat, you pay a couple bucks, whatever. They give you that little receipt for the coat, and at the end of the night, you can go ahead and give the receipt, they'll give you your coat back, and so on and so forth. So that's how it used to be with the monetary system, where you had real, precious metals like gold and silver at a bank. And instead of you having to carry around those bars or coins, you were given these paper receipts, money, as essentially just representing the metals or the precious metal that is held at the bank. So it's like you could transact with these bills because they're representative of something of true intrinsic value. And instead of you having to carry around these bars or coins, which is whenever you want to go ahead and grab them, you can. You bring those bills to the bank. The bank will, give you that product in exchange for the bills, because they're just representing what's already there. So that's how money used to be. It used to be, backed by something of true intrinsic value. But now, in 1971, that changed forever. Nixon unbacked the dollar from gold. And at the time, all other currencies were tied to the dollar. So as the dollar is, being cut, its ties being cut from gold, it's starting to inflate more exponentially, and all other currencies are kind of floating up with it. It's almost like think of like a helium balloon. As soon as you cut the end that's way down, the balloon is just floating. It's floating, it's floating, it's floating. You can't get it unless you're, inside and there's a roof. But the thing is with the monetary system, there is no roof. There is no cap to how much money can be created anymore. And so it's really interesting, because now what we see as quote unquote money doesn't even meet the definition, the most important definition of money, which is that it needs to be a store of value.
Mhm.
So the money that people refer to now, that usually unknowingly, it's not true money. It's just currency. And the way that I look at the monetary system and where we're going is we eventually have to get to a point of real value again. There's a series on YouTube that I've studied, and then I came across back in 2019. It's called The Hidden Secrets of Money by Mike Maloney. It's a 10 video series, kind of docu-series on YouTube. And this guy's like, he's like one of those people that's like, because of how old he is, like you just know this guy like knows what's up. Like it's like one of those ones. He's got like the wisdom of his years, and he's been in the precious metal space for decades and decades. And so in this series, he really helps to unpack how these huge cycles pan out with money. And there's always, it's like a pendulum where it'll swing from quality money, so something of real, intrinsic value. It'll swing from that side to quantity currency, where it's no longer backed by anything. You can create it in unlimited quantities. And usually there's like war. Usually war is what causes that. They're like need for currency, the need for additional money is usually something like war. And he talks about this in the series. But no matter what, this pendulum always at some point has to swing from quantity currency back to quality money, because there's just no possible way that a system can continue to go on in that way without having something of true intrinsic value backing it. And so that's kind of like where we are right now. Like the US is, for example, like $33 trillion in debt. I think was the statistic as of yesterday. I was actually looked at it yesterday. I think it was like 33.4 trillion or something ridiculous like that. And that's just the economic debt, not the total debt, which is like over 100 trillion, which is crazy. So yeah, it's like that kind of foundational understanding. And then, going through the rest of that series, there's obviously a lot of other, pretty interesting things, hidden secrets of money, really. And it's just interesting with where the world's at right now, where we're going to be going over the next 7 to 10 years. So it's really interesting.
It's one of those things, like those numbers get hard to grasp. So like for anyone that doesn't understand, like a billion is 1,000 millionaires, and 1 trillion is 1,000 billionaires, would it be? So 33 trillion is freaking 33,000 billionaires. And that's just the US alone, right? That doesn't include all the other countries and stuff like that. Like it's, as you said, it's insane to even start trying to fathom all those crazy high numbers, because most people at this age hasn't even ever seen 100,000, let alone freaking $33 trillion. Like it's so hard to grasp those numbers, and it's kind of just to the point where it's like most people let it fly over their head because it's so hard to grasp, and it doesn't really make sense how big these numbers can get. And I wanted to start asking you, because I want to play devil's advocate a little bit, because you said something of true intrinsic value. Now, to get a little philosophical on you a little bit, I just want to hear your thoughts. I'm curious, like, can money ever be something of true intrinsic value if humans are the ones who assign meaning and value? Can money itself ever actually have value?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think you can answer it one of two ways. You could say like, well, technically, because we're the ones that are assigning value to it, like what is value? Who defines what value is, right? So there's that side of the coin. And then the other side of the coin is, well, for something like gold or for something like silver, the reason that they have intrinsic value is because of the utility that we have with both of those things. Gold is one of the most durable, and there's another word for it. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's malleable. It's extremely malleable. You can take 1 ounce of gold, which is, this isn't a real ounce of gold, but this is just like a coin. You could take a coin like this, a gold coin like this. We'll call it 1 ounce. That's not actually a 1 ounce gold coin, but let's just say it was. You could take that same 1 ounce coin and you could stretch it into a wire that is the full length of a football field, which is crazy. And it's obviously conductive. Silver, on the other hand, like there's not a single electronic device that doesn't use silver because of how conductive it is. It's the most conductive element that we've discovered today, other than maybe like some space rock that we haven't discovered yet, So the intrinsic value comes in our utility and how we use whatever it is. So the reason that, quote, money has value right now is because the $20 that I give you in exchange for my meal is worth $20 to you in exchange for the meal that you gave me. That's like the only thing it's really built off of. So yeah, it's, again, who assigns the value? Well, it's it's hard to say who assigns the value because we all kind of collectively, or not us, but like the elite or the people that are, the bankers are the ones that really, define the value. But again, essentially there has to be some sort of utility for whatever it is in order for it to be considered money.
100%. And I feel like the more people understand that, like money in itself, or at least currency in itself, is man-made, right?
Hmm.
And I love the distinction that you made, bro, because I haven't heard anyone put it that way. Whereas money is something that it's a means of exchange that intrinsically holds value, whereas currency is just a means of exchange, right? And that
Exactly.
value kind of gets lost. So I actually haven't ever heard anyone put it that way, and that makes a lot of sense when you break it down like that. And so you started learning about like money and like how things work, and what's like one of like the biggest misconceptions that people who don't have money say when they're explaining to other people why they don't have money.
Mm. Yeah. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions with money is that it's like the root of all evil.
Hmm.
We've all heard that saying, like, "Oh, money doesn't grow on trees." Well, it kind of does now. It's
Technically,
paper
yeah.
money. Not here in Canada. We got those plastic bills that are kind of weird. Uh, but that's one saying that people hear. Or money is the root of all evil. Is something else that we hear. So we're programmed at a very young age as to our beliefs around money, and those are some of the things that we're programmed with. And the reality is, the love for money is the root of all evil. I mean, it's said. I'm pretty sure it's stated in the Bible that way as well.
Hmm.
And so, I think the reason why a lot of people are in this kind of scarcity mindset when it comes to money is because of how they've been programmed to view money. Number one, and number two, the way that we refer to money now is currency, and the root word of currency is current, meaning that it needs to be flowing. It can't just come from a source and that's it. Like, it needs to flow from one side to the other side, like a current would. So in order for me to attract more wealth or abundance into my life monetarily, I need to be providing more value. I need to be giving more in order to receive more. So people will be so focused on their scarcity when it comes to money, that lack mindset of, oh, I don't have this, or oh, I don't have that, whether it's actual money or materialistic things, without really realizing that there needs to be an equal value exchange in order for me to create more for myself in terms of money and in terms of wealth. And so that, I think, is a huge thing that people don't realize. I wouldn't really say it's, I guess, a quote misconception, but it's something that's maybe just not known to the vast majority of our society. Is like, hey, like, if you are a person of value and you're giving more than you're receiving monetarily, at some point down the line, you're going to start to get paid more for the work that you've already done and that you're presently doing.
100%. And you mentioned something earlier about like programming, and
Hmm.
let me ask you now, because you've traveled a lot more, you've made a lot more money than most of the people at this age ever do, right? Because you decided to invest in yourself, you took risk, you worked the long hours, you learned a skill that provides value to the marketplace, and you just ran with that, right? But you also mentioned that programming is something that we must overcome. How did you stop yourself from backtracking at this age? At least backtracking to a place of no return, right? Because we all have ups and downs, but like, how did you stop yourself from reverting back to who you once were when finding success this early on in life? Because we
Hmm.
haven't even reached our
Hmm.
quarter life crisis yet, right? We still
Hmm.
haven't even hit the
Facts.
25 yet, right? So it's like, how do you see, like, stop yourself from reverting back to who you used to be after finding success so early on, or finding your stride a little bit earlier on than most people ever do?
Yeah, so when it comes to programming, a lot of the programming that we have is something that we need to consciously work through and reprogram. There's not very many people that will come into a level of success monetarily without having, to a certain extent, worked through some of that programming and reprogrammed it the way that is best for them to move forward and accomplish the goals that they're, aspiring to accomplish. So I think the biggest thing to consider is, okay, how can I self honestly look at my programming and, the family, the people that I, grew up with, parents, the environment, brothers, sisters, school, friends, peers, stuff like that. There's so much, like the key age range to really look at is 0 to 7 years old, because that's when we are physically integrating and embodying everything that we're exposed to. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, we don't have a conscious mind to say, like, no, I'm going to leave that and take in what's good for me. Like, you're just soaking up everything. So it's important to take a look at those 7 years and, to the best of your ability, identify key events in your life emotionally. Usually there's memories that have very big emotional charges. It could be traumatic experiences, it could be things of that nature, and really dive deep into reflecting and working through those experiences and unpacking, okay, because this and this happened to me, that's why I've been, walking on eggshells and not having the confidence or sticking up for myself the way that I should, so to speak. And that, maybe it's hard to think about how that could correlate to money, but the thing is these are all unconscious within yourself, and part of the reason that you may be having a hard time reaching a level of success financially is because of those unconscious programs that are playing. So if you can, one of the best ways that you can do this, by the way, for those that are watching and listening, is just grab a piece of paper and just write. Literally just write out, so that you can visually see and consciously be aware of some of those emotions or those stuck programs from childhood, and then just work through those. See if there's a way for you to reprogram the way of thinking that you might have as a result of some of those events. Like an example, just to give, and this is one that has to do with money for me. At a very young age, I used to always go to the Lego store. I told this story when I was in New York as well. I'll go into the Lego store. Lego store is like one of the most lit places to go into as a kid. It's like, if you're not going into like the GameStop, which is probably maybe a tier higher than that for me as a gamer, the Lego store is like right up there, like one of the top 3 places you can go to as a kid. So, I go into the Lego store. I'm always going in there with my boys and stuff when we're growing up over the summer. And there, you have these crazy Lego sets. You got like the crazy like Hogwarts Lego sets for the Harry Potter fans. You got the crazy Millennium Falcon for Star Wars fans and stuff like that. And I remember asking my mom, I was there with a friend of mine, Dylan, asking my mom if we could get one of these bigger Star Wars Lego sets, because I love Star Wars. I still do. Still love Star Wars. And, I asked her, like, hey, mom, like, can we get this Lego set? Her response is, no, Don, not right now. So I respond to that question the way that any kid that's that age would, with the common question of why. Why? You're asking why to everything as a kid. And so she responds, she says, because of money. And so even at that young age, not having really a conscious awareness of what money is, I didn't know who this money person was. I just knew that he needed to go, whoever he was, right? And then I found out, obviously, money's not a person. It's a tool. It's a resource. But immediately after that conversation, there was a lack mentality that was there and that was instilled into my 7, 8-year-old self, in that money is the reason why we can or why we can't do things.
Yeah, 100%.
So that was a huge, huge program for me to work through.
Man, it reminded me, and Jordan Peterson illustrates this a lot better than I ever could, but he talks about that there are dragons that need to be slain. And
Absolutely.
it is easier to slay the dragon when go inside the cave and face him head on than it is to try and defend the village from the dragon.
Mm.
Meaning, it is easier to tackle your problems before they arise than it is to tackle them when they're already flared up and it's in their face, right?
Yeah.
And so being proactive as to reprogramming yourself, becoming aware, diving into the subconscious and figuring out what it is. And it gets dark down there, right?
It does.
Very, very dark, but it's like, hey, you could wait, but if he attacks the village and you're not prepared for it, as I said, it's a lot harder to defend people and slay a dragon than it is to just go in the cave and slay the dragon, face him head on when you don't have people to worry about. Right? That's
Facts.
why a lot of people in like superheroes and anime or whatever, when they fight the main bad guy, it's like it's always a solo operation because they don't
Hmm.
want their loved ones to get in the way, or loved ones to get hurt, and a lot of the main stuff. But yeah, so man, Donnie, you dropped a lot of nuggets, and we definitely that was powerful what you just brought up right there, man. Where can we connect with you? Where can we find you at? We want to learn more about what you have going on and learn more about this trading thing that you got going on.
Yeah, 100%. So my social media is Donny Dropout, DonnyDropout across the board, all platforms. You guys can take a look at the website as well that we have. It's called rfgacademy.com, rfgacademy.com. That's where we have a lot of our just information, about how you could work alongside us, and obviously our goal and our pursuit is to help people elevate in the three most important pillars of life: health, wealth, and happiness. And all three of those pillars coincide with one another. So if one of them isn't where you'd like it to be, odds are all three of them aren't where you'd like them to be. So that's really what our focus and intention is on, is helping people elevate in those three areas. But yeah, those are the probably the best places for people to find me and connect with me for sure.
Now it's time for our famous 5 questions. Same 5 questions I ask every single guest. Question number one is, what is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
Most impactful lesson that I've learned in life, man, I would say go as far as you can see, and when you get there you'll see further. I remember for me, like starting out in entrepreneurship and starting out in the world of investing and trading, I had a vision for myself, and the vision that I had for myself when I started is not what it is today. Like, it's constantly changed, it's constantly evolved. And the reality is, you don't have to have the whole journey mapped out to get started. Just take that first step, go as far as you can see. When you get there you'll see further.
What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
The most admirable trait I think a person can have is probably integrity. And I think the reason for that is I personally, at least, I value the word of someone very highly. So if that person sticks true to their word and they do what they say they're going to do, have a high level of integrity, I respect that person a lot. But if it's something, and it's usually easy for me to kind of feel it out fairly early on in conversation with somebody, if they don't have a high level of integrity, it's not usually not somebody that I want to be around.
If you had to change someone's life with one book, which book would you recommend?
Oh, this is an easy answer for me. I love this book. This was like my most favorite book from last year. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, I believe is his last name. Covey.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People for sure. Game changer. Really, really high level book for sure.
What is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind?
Wow, the legacy that I'm trying to leave behind. My I guess trajectory in moving forward with life is to help to co-create a world that's best for all. So I think that AI has a role to play in that. I think we, us two, and kind of doing what we're doing, and supporting and helping other people, entrepreneurial just like ourselves. I think we have a part to play in that and a role to play in that. And so I think the legacy that I'm striving to leave behind is a legacy of paradise. Not paradise as a destination, but paradise as a mentality, as a mindset, where in order for us to experience a world that is best for all, we need to be almost moving from a mindset and mentality of paradise, which is basically just cool, calm, collected, not acting impulsively, just vibing out, having a good time, and everything being where we want it to be with the three pillars: health, wealth, and happiness. And so I would say that's the legacy that I'm looking to leave behind, and that I know my kids, the future generations, are going to continue to carry and move forward. And so, yeah.
For if someone wanted to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
First step that I would recommend anybody to take on their walk to wealth, if they were to start today, would be seek mentorship and a community. Whatever it is that you're looking to do, there's so many different ways you can attract and create wealth in your life. Find what you're passionate about, find something you have an interest in, and then surround yourself with a community of like-minded people doing the same thing. Because one, you're going to be able to get to where they're at sooner, and two, you can have that community of like-minded people to lean on. Because one of the most difficult things for me that I worked through when I first started in the world of investing and trading was that my environment and the people I was surrounded with just looked at me like I had three heads. They didn't understand what I was doing. They couldn't support me in the way that I would have wanted them to. And so that I would say is probably number one recommendation. Seek mentorship, seek a community, and usually those two things come as a package deal. So that would be my number one recommendation.
Donnie, man, it was a pleasure having you on. I can't wait for whenever next year we get on to do a part two, man, because I'm excited to keep the conversation growing, it's continuing to collaborate with each other and grow with each other, man. And I'm excited to see what you got going on for all the rest of 2023 and all the things you're going to do in 2024 and beyond, man.
Likewise, John, I appreciate you for having me on, man. And it's so cool to be on this journey together and supporting one another. And yeah, I appreciate you again for having me on, brother.